Today we're going to go over Mark 2:7, which is a verse where Jesus blasphemes. Don't believe me? Stay with me. Let's read. Ti hutos la lei, blaspheme. Tis dunatai aphienai hamartiais, e me heis ho theos. So this is what the Pharisees and the scribes were reasoning in their hearts. So they're not speaking out these questions, these rhetorical questions, or these statements. It's something that goes on in their heart, in their mind. But Jesus knows this. All right. So there are three sentences here. The first one, Ti hutos la ley. So you see this semicolon, looks like a semicolon. It's actually the Greek sign for a question mark. Okay. So the first sentence is a question. Then there is just a statement made out of just one verb, blaspheme. And there is the last question, another sort of semicolon is another question. So it's two questions and one statement. Okay. So the two questions are introduced by these two pronoun, t and tis. Now, this t is the neuter of the interrogative pronoun, which can be translated as why. Okay, in many cases. So in this case, it just means why. Um, it's an interrogative adverb in this case. So why? This it's an interrogative pronoun, so it means who. Okay, you're gonna see that. So there are these two questions. One starts with why. The second one that starts with who. And the first question, you see the verb. It's right here, la ley. Okay, with this ending a in third person singular, indicative present time, third person singular. So this is verb one. Then you have the second sentence where you have the verb to, again, third person singular, indicative present, a. And then you have the third verb, which actually it's a compound. So you have a helping verb here. So it's a helping verb, dunatai, and then there is the main verb here, which is verb number three. Okay. So now in the first question, you have the why, you have the verb. Where's the subject? Well, it's right here. Hutos is the subject. Okay. And then these hutos, which is pronounced pretty much the same, but you see it's written differently. The accent is different, and the omicron, it's there's no omicron, there's omega, but the pronunciation is pretty much the same. It's completely different. This is just an adverb. Okay, so this utos is a pronoun that in this case functions as a subject. This hutos is actually just an adverb. Okay, so we have the first sentence. The second sentence is just a verb. The third sentence, we said there's the who, which is the subject of the question. Then you have the helping verb and the main verb, and then you have the direct object, which is hamartias, direct object. Okay, and then you have this phrase introduced by these two preposition, if you want, a, me, if not, except, save, but you can decide. And then you have ho theos, which is, well, you already know it's God, right? So you have the definite article ho, and then theos, which is God. Okay. And then you have this heis, which is actually an adjective, which is connected to God. We're going to see what it means. All right. So from a grammatical point of view, it's very, very elementary. Now let's try to understand what the scribes actually are thinking in their heart. Now, first question. So we said T is neuter. Okay. So is the interrogative pronoun. So it would mean what, generally is what. Okay. In the neuter, what. But in some cases, this what can be used in as an adverb in sense of why. Okay, so this is the meaning. Why? Okay, why what? Well, we said the subject is this hutos. Now, this hutos is an indefinite pronoun. Pronoun in the masculine singular nominative case. Okay, and it means this. Okay, or this one. Okay, this man, this person. Okay, why this man, right? Why does this man? Why does this? Why does this guy? Okay, we could translate. And then you have the verb lalei. Now lalei comes from the verb laleo, and the verb laleo means to talk. To talk. Now it's a sort of alliteration, okay, with a lot of lambda, la la la. When we say blah blah blah, right, to indicate the idea of talking, this is the same idea, right? So the word laleo means to move your tongue really fast, right? So it gives the even the sound perception of somebody talking. Okay, so why is this man talking hutos? Hutos means um, like this, like this. Okay, it's the opposite, like this. So why is this man talking like this? Okay. Um, well, what did Jesus say? Well, he had just said that to the paralytic that his sins were forgiven, right? So the obvious question of the scribes and the Pharisees is, why is this guy talking like this? Blaspheme. He blasphemes. He is blaspheming, right? So this is indicative present in the third person singular. Third person singular. All right. The verb is blasphemeo. Okay, blasphemeo, from which you have the English word to blaspheme, um, which we can meaning we can understand if we think about uh, the two pieces by which this verb is made of. So you have the root of the verb femi, which is the ending of the verb, blasphemeo, femi, which means to say or to talk. Okay, to talk or to say. Okay, and then you have the first part, blas, which comes from the verb blapto, which means to endure, to hurt. Okay, to endure, to hurt. So if you hurt with your words, you're saying something injurious, right? Something blasphemous. Something blasphemous is something that destroys, that hurts. Okay, that's the meaning of the word blaspheme. But in the most religious sense, the word blaspheme comes to have that meaning of saying something that goes directly against God, that offends God, okay, that hurts God, that creates an injury against God, right? Now, why are they thinking that? Why are they thinking that Jesus is really blaspheming here? Well, the second question, the end of the verse, explain exactly why they think Jesus is blaspheming. In fact, they're saying, they're pronouncing this rhetorical question. Tis, which is, we said, an interrogative pronoun, masculine, singular in the nominative case, which we are going to translate as who. Okay, who, and then you have the helping verb dunatai, which comes from the verb dunamai. We already encountered this verb, which means to be able to. Okay, to be able to have the power of. In fact, dunamis, right, means power. Dynamite means power in English, right? So the verb dynamite, it can be translated as can, but it's really having the power, the authority of. Okay, so who is able to, who has the power of aphienai, is the verb for forgiveness, to forgive. Okay, to forgive. This is an infinitive. This is the infinitive infinitive tense of the verb aphiemai. Okay, let's write it here. Aphiemai. All right. Which means to forgive, to let go. Okay, to forgive. So, who has the power of forgiving hamartias? We already seen this. This means sins. It's a feminine noun, plural, and you see this ending "as" tells us that this is an accusative, right? So, direct object. Who has the power of forgiving sins? And here comes the blasphemy. He, amen. If not, ho theos, God. Heis means literally one. Okay, so in this case, we should translate it as alone. So Heis is the literally the number one in Greek. Number one is Heis. Okay, and so in this case, we could translate if not God alone. Okay, so putting everything together, what the scribes and the Pharisees are dialoguing in their hearts is, why is this man talking like this? He blasphemes. Who has the power of forgiving sins if not God alone? Now, this rhetorical question by the scribes and the Pharisees in their heart has deep theological meaning, deep theological consequences. First of all, they realize immediately that what Jesus said is a blasphemy. Nobody can have the authority of forgiving sins. No human being can have that authority of saying your sins are forgiven. Now, why is this important? First of all, because there are some scholars out there that try to deny that Jesus claims to be God in the synoptic gospels: Mark, Luke, Matthew. Now, we've seen in the first chapter of Mark and the first verses of the second chapter of Mark that is all over the place, undeniably. Mark is depicting Jesus as God in the flesh, and Jesus himself is just screaming explicitly, I am God, right? Without saying those words. But he just wants people to just get to that obvious conclusion. Now, um, some skeptical scholars, I'm thinking about, for example, Bart Ehrman, the most famous of all, when he reviews this passage and try to explain away this passage, he's going to tell you that Jesus here was not claiming divinity. He was actually just challenging the authority of the Pharisees that were there listening to him. Because he says the scribes and the Pharisees were the same high priests that in the temple would declare the sins of the people forgiven once they would perform the sacrifice, right? The high priest was the one who was slaughtering the lamb and declaring the sins of the people forgiven. So, according to this interpretation, here Jesus is not claiming divinity. Jesus is just saying, oh, if you can forgive sins, has you have the authority as high priest to forgive sins, well, so do I. But this does not stand up to scrutiny. This does not explain the rhetorical question of the scribes and the Pharisees. The scribes and the Pharisees immediately understood that what Jesus was doing was not challenging their authority, was challenging God. If Jesus was really only a man and a man only, those words would be immediately blasphemous because, as they say, who else other than God can forgive sins? If they really perceived or had perceived that Jesus was challenging their authority, they would have said, well, who is this guy? Not that he's blaspheming, first of all. Why would he be blaspheming? But they would have thought something like along the lines, who other than high priests can forgive sins, right? If that's what Jesus meant. But no, they understand that Jesus is putting himself on the same level of God. And that's exactly why they're accusing him in their mind of blasphemy. So the scribes and the Pharisees understand clearly that Jesus here is saying something that only God can say. And so the question is a rhetorical one. Who else other than God can forgive sins? And so, what is the answer to this rhetorical question of the scribes and the Pharisees? Who else other than God can forgive sins? And the answer is bingo.